we've looked at some spiritual tools and some emotional tools, and now I want to look at some physical tools that you can practice, not only for your self-care, but for while you're engaging with your loved one. Slowing down is one of them. Taking time just to close your eyes and breathe. I know people tell you to do this ad nauseum, and yet even I forget to do it. To just set my watch. And just yesterday, I was like, 1, 2. And I just took 30 breaths. And it really helps reset your mood. Getting outside. I'm going to come back to this one because this is so important. Meditating. There are some really cool meditations on the internet. Guided meditations. In the hospice, one of the hospice I worked in, 90% of my patients had Alzheimer's, and of those, 90% were Catholic. And with many of them, as they continued to decline, the best way to engage with them was through prayer and meditation. The repetitive, I am the best Hail Mary saying Methodist that you will know. And it's something about the rhythm and the familiarity. So meditating, music and sounds. I think my biggest pet peeve is to go into a nursing home and have Jerry Springer on the TV. Because that's what the nurses want to watch, or the home health aides. So be very careful about what your loved one is hearing. Sometimes with dementia, they have a hard time differentiating between a reality that they see on TV and their own personal reality. I once had a woman very distraught about her missing child. It wasn't her missing child, but it was a very famous case of a missing child that was on the news all the time. So be conscious of what they're hearing. Eat well, or try to. Get enough sleep, or try to. Practice reframing. We've talked about that. Looking at a situation through their eyes. Or how would my loved one has made a mess all over the floor. How would this look if I put on rose-colored glasses? Oh, it's just a mess on the floor. I can clean it up. I didn't attribute any blame. I didn't judge them for being messy. It is what it is. Reframe. Pick up the phone and ask for help. And I'll tell you, it is hard to ask for help, but people want to help. And they really want to help if they know specifically what you need. I need someone to wash my wife's hair twice a week. I can do that. That's 20 minutes. I can do that. I really need someone to rake my leaves in the fall. If you can identify specific needs that will help you, if someone could just come and sit with my mother so I can just grab a shower just once a week. So when you know your needs, know your specific needs, and even if you're you're nervous about asking for help, you can always pick up the phone and say, I need you to pray for me. I'm really struggling with this, because sometimes that will segue into how can I help? And you can get more help. Then, not that prayer is not important, but it can also be a segue. One of the reasons that I was a chaplain, but then became certified in physical hands-on care is because there are oftentimes people wouldn't want to sit and pray with me if they were sitting in a messy brief. So I learned how to take care of that messy brief because that just kind of solved the problem. So knowing the specifics of what you want to ask for help. And then, this clicker. For those of you who are friends wanting to support caregivers, identify your own comfort level. And if you're anxious about how to engage with someone, I'll jump to the bottom. When I was training to be a chaplain, I was so afraid of saying the wrong thing. I wanted to help, but I was afraid of making it worse or saying something stupid. And my supervisor said, when you go into a hospital room, knock on that door and ask yourself, what is this person going to teach me about myself? Because we're all here ourselves with our own approach to life. And why not learn about ourselves from other people? And it takes the pressure off of feeling like you have to know how to help someone. And when you learn about yourself from another person, sometimes you're able to engage in ways that are deeper than just you trying to solve a problem. Confirm what the caregiver needs. If the caregiver has already paid for lawn service, they don't need you to come and mow their lawn. If you want to help, ask specifically, what can I do to help? Matching needs with gifts. On your worksheet, I would like you to take just 3 or 4 minutes and make a list. Now that you've kind of seen the feedback and watched a video that didn't have any sound to it, make a list of needs that you have identified the caregivers have. And then, in the other section, write a list of your strengths, things you enjoy doing, gifts you have to offer, services you have to give. So take a few minutes and fill out needs and gifts. Some needs that you have identified that caregivers are encountering. What do caregivers need? Huh? To feel appreciated. Very good. Rest. Rest. Private time. Understanding. Someone to listen. Mm-hmm. Our prayers. I'm sorry? A chance to be with, yes, yes. And how about gifts? Whether you're a caregiver or a friend of a caregiver, what are your strengths? What do you have to offer? Cooking. Hey. Love and support. Listening. Mm-hmm. Someone to listen, as you had said. A lot of times that's just what they need, someone to listen and to have validation. And not as much as a friend of a caregiver, you can say, oh, you poor thing, or you can ask them more about it. What specifically makes you sad? How do you wish it were different? How can I help? Is there anything I can do to get you from where you are to where you want to be? The book I wrote, it's not really, it can be used for individuals, but I wrote it for churches, and there's a whole section for caregivers where you do a survey on identifying your talents and gifts, and then we pair them with the needs of the congregation. So this is just kind of peripheral, but being honest about your limitations as a caregiver can, you can say, I need help in this because I can't do this. I need help with a meal because I myself am having memory problems and I don't trust myself to turn off the stove, As a friend, be honest about what you can do. As I mentioned earlier, you don't want to overcommit and then back off when it's a little bit too much. I already talked about asking what this person is going to teach me about myself. Ways to engage with your loved one, whether you're a caregiver or a friend who's coming to visit and wants to engage. It depends on the degree of the dementia. Meet the person where they are. Validate their feelings without telling them how they should feel. Oh, you should be happy living with your daughter. She's cooking for you. She's, a loss of independence is a loss of independence, and recognizing that is important. Refrain from putting them on the spot with regards to memory. Well, you remember her name. We just had supper with her last week. Or, oh, do you remember the time? If you're asking someone with dementia to pinpoint a specific time period, it kind of puts them on the spot. So you can say, oh, I loved the time that we went fishing, rather than, do you remember the time we went fishing? Just start with I statements. Gather information about their history. This is great if you're visiting someone who may be in a memory care unit, asking the family to keep a scrapbook in a drawer so that when you go and visit with the person, you can look through pictures. Are you familiar with the word retrogenesis? To me, this is a fascinating concept. With Alzheimer's and some other dementias, they experience retrogenesis, which is you forget in reverse order. So your youngest children, you will remember for longer than, or your oldest children, you will remember longer than your youngest. So the farther back in time you can go in their history, the more you may be able to engage with them. So that's why, did you have a pet growing up? Did you like your first grade teacher? Things that go back in time. And this magazine, Reminisce, is wonderful if you have access to a subscription of that. It goes through periods of over the past probably 80 years or so and tells stories, and it's a great way to engage on common topics that you were likely to experience in that time frame. For example, there is, oh, it left me. It happens. Oh, goodness. Oh, shoot. We went back in time. Oh, I really did forget. Oh, well, maybe it'll come back to me. And looking for ways to give them control, as I said, allowing them to button up their own shirt, choosing what they want to wear rather than picking out their clothes, having them tell you what they would like to eat. How friends can help in churches, having been a youth pastor once and spending a lot of time in the kitchen, boy, those kids would just yap. Telling stories and passing along information about each other is helpful. But making sure that there's follow-up with if so-and-so is having trouble at home because so-and-so did this, wow, what can we do to help them? So gossiping and storytelling as people, as friends encounter challenges, we're going to talk about them. And it shares information, but be sure that you translate that into how to help. It doesn't just get stuck with telling stories on others. The power of YouTube. I am circumventing this not working, and I'm going to play this. You hear it? What about a laughing baby doesn't make you smile? And how many of you have gone down the rabbit hole of YouTube watching cats following a laser pointer or babies laughing. YouTube is so wonderful for enhancing interactions with people with dementia. You can look up World War II documentaries. I've been fascinated with Instagram. There's this one channel, they show you how to braid hair in different ways. And I just watch it. And I have a patient who is a hairdresser who loves that. Car repair, that's what it was, old radio shows. There's a certain period of time that thanks to my dad keeping records, I now know what evil lurks in the hearts of men. The shadow knows. Listening to those old radio shows can really, you get nostalgic. It's really nice. Travel videos often show beautiful scenery. So having your tablet with you or your laptop when you go to visit, or you're at home and your loved one is agitated and fidgeting, think, what in their past did they enjoy doing? And see what you can find on the internet. Go outside. Try, if they're not bedbound, go outside with your loved one every day. And if they are, find a window and open it. It takes between 10 and 18 hours for the air in your home to recirculate and have a new batch of air come in. Being outside for 15 minutes is enough to really enhance your mood. And I wish I could have found the journal article, but I read this great article about how it benefits you on a cellular level. Even if it's snowing or raining, I think it builds character when we're younger to get kids outside. And I think for older adults and for ourselves, if we can just crack open the window and stick our head out, even if it's raining, and breathe in fresh air, it can benefit us in so many ways. In Japan, it's called forest bathing, not just walking in the woods, but really intentionally setting foot into nature, surrounding yourself. It's shown to not only improve mood, boost your immune system by increasing the number of cells, anti-cancer protein. It reduces stress by lowering the amount of cortisol in the blood. So I'm a huge fan of going into nursing homes and saying, I'll wheel them, let's go outside just for a few minutes. Virtual reality, I think it's the future. I want to put all my stock in it. These things, you can get them for $4, little cardboard ones, or you can go fancy, or you can go hundreds of dollars. There are apps on your phone. Are you all familiar with virtual reality? You can download these apps. It puts a double screen on your phone, and you slide it in to the virtual reality. I had a patient who was a fighter pilot, and I downloaded flight simulations. And I would put this headset on him, and he would sit for hours. He loved it. I had a woman who loved going on roller coasters, and she would do that. Now, it made another person sick, but, so you have to be careful. I had one woman who loved the beach, and so for her birthday, the team of us had a bin with sand, and we put our feet in it, and we had a heat lamp, and we put on the ocean, and headsets so she could hear the waves. And she was at the ocean for 30 minutes. And just the power of technology that you can use. And it's easy because we're looking for things, not just to occupy them, but to help them find meaning in something. And so I just think virtual reality is great. Building boards. If churches are looking for something to do, a men's group or a women's group who wants to sew lap blankets that have, what was the name of the doll? I had one when I was little. Dressy Bessie. And she had a zipper, and I could tie her shoes and buttons. There are a lot of times that people with dementia, and they get fidgety. They like to be able to do manipulation things. This is a great opportunity for unlocking things and zipping, and it can help people occupied. They are not cheap if you buy them, But I know of a men's group in Cleveland that builds these as a ministry. And they accept donations of old padlocks and just little latches and things. And that can find meaning. I knew of one group that had bolts with mismatched nuts, and they had to match up the nuts. So things that keep them occupied and busy. Sometimes you need to get really creative. I've had patients who get very anxious about not having money in their wallet or in their purse. So to make sure they always have some dollars on them, or there's some pretty realistic looking fake money. You can be a millionaire and they'll be so thrilled to see how much money they have. Mismatched laundry I see this a lot in nursing homes, miscolored socks that need to be matched up, washcloths, folds, things that you can sit and you can watch TV together and your loved one can have something to do. Organizing and sorting things, having folders, each with a different picture on it, a house, a dog, farm animals, and having a stack of magazine pictures that you've cut out. The house goes in the house. Could you help me please organize these pictures? I need these in this folder. And then they feel helpful and worthwhile, and it is a way for you to engage with them. Baby dolls, I almost get choked up because there are so many families who eschew usually a mother or their wife carrying a baby doll. And yet, the comfort that it brings to some people to be able to walk around and hold a baby doll, it's just magical. And so please, if you think that is something that would bring comfort to your loved one, don't give a hoot about what anyone thinks about it and buy a realistic-looking baby doll and clothes to put on. And that can really bring meaning to someone with dementia. And the same is with lifelike animals. I don't know how many times I've walked into a retirement room and go, oh, look at that not real cat. They have some real lifelike stuffed animals that they'll pet and they'll talk about and they'll talk to, and it brings them happiness, which brings me happiness. Other ways the church can help. There's this great book by Elizabeth Shulman. Dementia-friendly worship is a good resource. Ministry with the Forgotten is written by retired Methodist Bishop Kenneth Carter. It's great. Creating Moments of Joy has a bunch of just real simple ways you can interact with your loved ones. All of these things are on Amazon. So the main thing churches can do and senior centers is what you're doing today, educating yourself on the needs and the challenges and the tools that people can use with dementia loved ones and with caregivers. Looking for ways to include in activities. Now these printers, they collate and they sort and everything. But I know of one church that once a week, loved ones who have, or caregivers who have a loved one with dementia, who are still able to, they gather every Thursday and they put together the church bulletin. Or during campaign season, they will stuff envelopes. It gives them something to do. It gives caregivers the opportunity to be with other people who may be experiencing the same thing. And it's just a social interaction where you're accomplishing something, you're helping people feel like they're worthy, and that they're needed. Offer to sit with a loved one for an hour, and again, asking, is there something you can tell me about your loved one? Where were they born and raised? Questions that I can ask to help build a rapport. One thing I do, because one of the most powerful of the senses for igniting memories, do you know what it is? Smell. So, do I have time to tell you? Oh, no, I won't tell you that story. But I do always wear the same perfume when I go, and people tend to remember me more because I always smell the same. Oh, I'm sorry. Like those busy boards that I showed you, that's something that churches can do. And of course, cards, if you can do a card ministry, it's helpful. People just really don't want to be forgotten. So if you can let them know that they're being thought about, that can go a long way. And providing transportation. These are just little adaptive devices that I think every caregiver should have. Weighted silverware to help with eating, because again, you want your loved one to have control. You want them to be as independent as they can. Gait belts are cheap and very important when it comes to just lifting a loved one. Put a gait belt around, leave some space, and it gives you something to anchor on. Shoe horns, I just bought one for myself because I needed one. Adaptive devices for getting in and out of the car. And then a draw sheet. Do you all use, maybe you won't need to use draw sheets yet, but a lot of people, I'm surprised, still don't know about the usefulness of folding a sheet and putting it widthwise. And when it comes time to turn a loved one or to lift them, you get another person and you slide them up. You lift them from the sheet, not pull underneath their shoulders. So those are just some things I thought about then. And as your loved one declines, try other forms of communicating, just plain familiar songs. Using gentle touch, hand massages can be great, especially if you use like lavender or peppermint oil. Massages, have you ever seen those? I think they're called like Chinese head massagers, those things that go up and down on your head. A lot of women like to have their hair brushed. Feeding them their favorite food, or providing their favorite food, and walking together as you're able. When someone declines to the point where they're non-responsive, they're still often around of their surroundings. The reason I think they say that hearing is the last sense to go, it's because it's one sense you don't have to put any effort into. You just receive. So as with whatever's playing on TV or whatever conversations that you're having, be aware that they can hear, if their hearing is okay, and just be conscious of that. Use a calm, gentle approach. Tell them what you're going to do before you're going to do it. Don't just decide to change them, or, well, I'm going to change your brief now. I'm going to roll you over. Can you reach over and grab the bar? Use touch to convey your message, holding hands. The power of touch is very impactful when someone is no longer able to verbally communicate. And then I want to say a word about hospice, because the number one thing I hear from families is, why didn't I sign up sooner? The only thing you need is not just a doctor's order. You also have to qualify for it. But initially, all you need is a doctor's order to be evaluated for hospice. People think, well, they're not dying yet. But you can, if you meet the criteria, be in hospice for years. I kid you not. I'm sure the government doesn't want me to tell you, but it is a Medicare benefit, and it provides you with a nurse 1 to 2 times a week, a nursing aide to help with bathing, or just for socialization, a social worker who can help connect you with needed resources. Many of them offer music therapy or pet therapy or volunteers. I just think that hospice is a very underutilized resource because they think, oh, it's the H word. But it's really not just for end-stage cancer patients. And if you have Alzheimer's, that is the one form of dementia that does lead to death. And if you have comorbidities, if you have other things going on, if you are losing weight, if your loved one has high blood pressure, if they're diabetic, they may qualify for hospice, and you will have support that you'll never want to go off the hospice. The other thing to know is there are many to choose from, and it's a very competitive field. So if your loved one has pneumonia and has to go to the hospital, and they're recommending hospice, And they say, oh, well, we work closely with this one. It's fine to meet with that one, but you can meet with any hospice that you want, as long as a doctor has said, we want them evaluated. And if you don't like that hospice, go to another. And if you're on a hospice because you didn't know who to choose and you were steered in a certain direction and you don't care for that team, you can change and have another hospice in the house or at the facility that day. So it's very fluid. I just want to dispel fears about hospice because it's such a wonderful resource. It can help you keep your caregiver in the home longer, or if they're in a facility, it gives them the opportunity and you the opportunity to know that there are more eyes and hands and hearts taking care of your loved one. So that's my little spiel on hospice. Well, last activity. I would like you to write down qualities you would want for yourself if you were a caregiver, or just as you've kind of been taking in everything today, if you could picture the ideal caregiver, what kind of qualities would they have? So take about 60 seconds, because we have 2 minutes left, and then I just want to close with a quick story. And since it's about time, I'm going to go ahead and tell this story while you're writing down your qualities, and so you can kind of enjoy both at the same time. Many years ago, there was a princess who lived in the Empire of China. She was the emperor's only daughter, and she was as beautiful as she was intelligent. The time came for her to marry, and after consulting with her father, she decided not to select just one of the court or some man she happened to know. She wanted to meet the finest and most handsome and interesting man in the whole kingdom. She believed that a person's appearance showed what that person was truly like, and that the depth of a person's inner being showed forth on that person's face. The leaders of the court were sent out to every corner of the kingdom to announce that the handsomest young men were to appear before the court on the appointed day. The best of those who came would then be taken to meet the princess herself. In one far-off province of the empire, there lived a very crafty man. He was anything but good, or good-looking. Indeed, one could tell from the hardness of his face that he was cruel and harsh. This man was a thief and a traitor, but he hit upon a plan. He wanted to see the finery of the palace and the princess in person himself. So he went to the best mask maker in China and ordered the most lifelike and handsome mask that the craftsman could imagine. Now, in those days, mask making was of the highest arts. Even so, when the thief saw the mask that he had ordered, he was shocked and amazed. He looked in a mirror and gasped in astonishment. Instead of the cruel and hard look of a thief, he saw before him a man of refinement and gentleness, a man of integrity and honesty, of kindness and generosity. He could hardly believe his eyes. When he came to court, there was no question about passing the first test, and he was sent on with several of the others to the royal palace itself. There he mixed with the greatest and finest people in the kingdom, and there the princess saw him. She was struck by his appearance at first sight. She knew better than to be easily swayed, but as she compared the masked thief with all the others, there was no comparison. He had the look of a true gentleman. The day came for the final selection, and he was the one that she chose. Now, the princess was far too wise to order anyone about. So after the guests left, she asked the handsomest of all men to come into her private chambers and asked him if he would marry her. Suddenly he saw the impossible alternatives. If he said no, then he would be known as the prince that turned down the princess. And if he married her, she would soon learn the truth and have him executed. He regretted the day he ever started out on this venture. He was silent for a while, but he hit upon a plan that might work. He told the princess that he never dreamt of being selected and that he needed time to consider the obligations that were involved. He said that on that day, 1 year from then, he would return to give his answer. The princess was most understanding. This seemed a wise decision, and so they parted. The thief now found his life quite altered. He could no longer disappear. He was now known as the most handsome and most wonderful man in the kingdom, and he had to act out that role that he had assumed. He had to guard every word so that it would not betray him. He had to learn to act with charm and grace and courage. He learned kindness and generosity, all of those qualities that were manifest in his face. How careful he had to be. He put so much energy into his acting. All the time, his heart was on fire, hidden within. When people appreciated his actions or spoke well of him, he shuddered because he knew who he really was. But his real fear was the realization that the time was approaching for him to return to the princess. The day finally came for their meeting. He decided to tell her the whole truth and take the consequences, whatever he might have to endure. Probably he would be beheaded for his treachery. They met in the great hall in the palace, and as they approached, the thief fell to the floor at the feet of the princess and sobbed out loud that he had deceived her. "I am only a thief and a scoundrel," he cried, "and I had this mask made so that I might have the chance to get inside and see the royal palace and meet the princess who is renowned above all other women. I'm truly sorry, for I have delayed your plans for an entire year." At first, the princess was very angry, but then she decided she should learn from the experience. She was intrigued by the mask and wondered what the man was like beneath it. So she reached her hand and raised him to his feet and said, "Yes, I have been deceived, but give me one pleasure. Take off your mask and let me see what you really look like, and then you can go." In fear and in trembling, the thief removed his mask. It was then that the princess cried out in real anger, "Why have you deceived me? Why did you have a mask made just like your real face?" The masquerader shook his head in confusion. The princess then handed him a mirror. Yes, it was true. His real face had become the same as a mask. For a whole year, he had lived with the intention to live up to the beauty of the mask he wore. And finally, he had become what he was trying to be. Of course, the story ended just as we would expect. The couple were married, and the transformed thief became one of the greatest emperors China ever had. You have in your mind the ideal caregiver. And I truly believe that if you can dream it, if God has placed a desire on your heart for something to be, then God will also provide you with the resources to achieve it. I hope that you know that you can be the caregiver that you desire to be through imagination, through hope, through practice, through trial and error, and know that you are surrounded by others who want to know how to support you.